So we were talking about autotrophs. And what level of ecology are autotrophs?
Individual.
Okay, so we're in individual. We did autotroph, and what all did we say about our friends, the autotrophs? So we did individual. We were doing autotroph. And what did we say?
We can gain energy two ways, like photo energy or through chemosynthesis, which is fixing carbon.
All right, so there's two kinds of autotrophs. There are our chemoautotrophs. Another word for this is chemosynthetic. Or chemosynthesis. So there's one kind. And the other type of autotroph would be autotrophs. Or photosynthetic or photosynthesis. So those are our two kinds of autotrophs. And the photoautotrophs, what's their source of energy? Light, okay, photo, light. And our chemoautotrophs, so the chemosynthetic, what do they use for energy? They use chemicals. Chemical. Why wouldn't the chemoautotrophs use light? Yeah, there's places where there's just not light. Places where there's just not light are very confusing to us because, well, we live in a place that there is light. But there are things, specifically a lot of bacteria, who live places where there's just no light. Also caves. No light in caves. Very disorienting. We said that these two things fix carbon. So all autotrophs are carbon fixers. And did we determine why carbon was broken? What happened to it? It was broken. Is it broken? That it needs to be fixed?
It's broken because when we take in oxygen, we break down carbon dioxide.
So we release carbon dioxide. Can we do anything with carbon dioxide? Can any heterotroph do anything with carbon dioxide? I do believe yesterday we started a hey way back when we did the biochemistry unit. We started the unit by talking about organic versus inorganic forms of carbon, right? And we said the inorganic forms of carbon are what? There are very few examples. Carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and the carbonates, right? Hey, Newt, welcome back. Do you think Nick's going to come back and get those 8 cans? If it wouldn't be a horrible waste of food, I would go bowling down the hallway with those cans. But it really would be a waste of food, so I won't do that because somebody who's in need could use that food. But gosh, it sounds like a good idea. So those inorganic carbons are not usable by any heterotroph. Carbon fixers take inorganic carbon and convert it into organic carbon. That process is called fixation. So inorganic carbon dioxide is converted into biomolecules. Specifically, the biomolecule in question here is going to be glucose. there were no autotrophs, none of the carbon in the world would be available for any of the heterotrophs. So heterotrophs rely on our carbon fixers. Now all of you are like, well, yeah, sure, my 5th grade teacher told me that we need plants because plants make our oxygen. That's only half the story. We need them for oxygen, but we also need them to fix carbon.
So it's like kind of like an endless cycle of autotrophs breaking down and fixing carbon, and then heterotrophs messing it up again.
Yes.
What does the bio word say?
Oh, biomolecules. You are absolutely correct, and we do have a very pretty cycle for all of this because it is a cycle. This whole process demonstrates the relationship between autotrophs and heterotrophs, and I'll show you both the chemical equation that autotrophs do, and then the chemical equation that heterotrophs do, and we'll give them names. Keeping in mind, here are some key words for every time we look at a chemical equation. Reactant, yield, and product. So the reactants are the things that you start with in a chemical equation. Yield is just the word we read when we see arrow. And the products are the things that get made. So for our photoautotrophs, we'll start there. They start with carbon dioxide, inorganic carbon, plus another inorganic compound, water. They add a little light. And it makes oxygen and glucose. My plus sign just got messy. What is that process called? You know you want to do it. All right, go ahead, do it. Own it. Newt would normally be leading you rabble rousers. I'll let you talk. You're making me sad. Sadness.
Photosynthesis.
Photosynthesis. Why did you not all photosynthesis together? There's disappointment here. Only like 4 of you did it. You know what? Newt! We need you! Lead the class in shenanigans. Please?
Oh, look if this is on the recording as well.
Absolutely.
Memories.
Yes! Come on, man. You know it felt good. Give in.
Did he say something?
You ready to do it now? You might as well just give up.
It doesn't count. I didn't hear it.
Wow. All right, I suppose only 4 people have done it. I'm just saying. When 7th hour, I get everybody to do it. Just saying. This process is in fact called photosynthesis. The exact opposite process is what's done by all of our heterotrophs. The exact opposite process, and by exact opposite I mean take this chemical equation and write it in reverse. I got it. So many new buttons. So much to learn. Yields.
What's the definition for reactant?
Everything on the left-hand side, so what you start an equation with, and a product is what you finish the equation with, so what gets made. Comparing it to a recipe, it would be like flour, sugar, butter, eggs, and then the product would be cookies.
So the photosynthesis process is by heterotrophs
Photosynthesis is by autotrophs. This bottom one, the exact opposite. That's our heterotroph friends. And, well, we call this respiration. So, Allie, when you were like, so wait a minute, what you're telling me is that autotrophs spend their life undoing or doing the thing that heterotrophs automatically undo, and it just continues like this in a futile circle? Yes. Exactly this futile circle. And autotrophs are out there like working super hard, filling the atmosphere with oxygen, fixing all kinds of carbon, and then the heterotrophs are like, mwah ha 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 ha. Disturbingly enough, of all of the organisms in all of that great big tree of life, that taxonomy thing, 95% of them are heterotrophs. So think of how very hard those 5% of autotrophs are working to overcome being saddled with those lazy bum heterotrophs who just undo everything. My Apple TV disappeared. We can oh. Did you just give up?
Yeah, I gave up.
Good call. Just throw in the towel.
I thought you were like gonna drop your iPad or something. I was like really scared for a second.
We can make the thing a picture, and it would look something like this. To demonstrate the relationship between autotroph and heterotroph, autotroph and heterotroph, where our heterotrophs are going to respire carbon dioxide taken in by our autotrophs. Our autotrophs are going to produce oxygen taken in by our heterotrophs. Knowing that autotrophs also respire, so we've got to add a couple extra arrows in there because they have mitochondria, and mitochondria is where that respiration takes place. So they will also respire, so they're also kind of undoing their own thing. But it's way less frustrating when you're the one who undoes what it is that you've done than somebody else. Add a little sunlight up at the top. Why am I adding sunlight to my picture? Because there's light above that yield, and quite frankly, the light provides what? Energy. Energy has to come from somewhere, so we're going to get it from light here. Water. We had water in there, right? So we should probably write inorganic compounds. That our autotrophs also take in. But it's not as simple as just saying, well, the gases are what cycles. Something else cycles too. Nutrients are going to go from one to the other, as well as energy. So nutrients and energy will get passed from autotrophs to heterotrophs. Do we pass nutrients and energy back from the heterotrophs to the autotrophs? Is there any swapping? How many of you guys have heard of the first and second law of thermodynamics? All right, I got a couple of you. This is a few of you. It's good, you know. Class of 13 earlier, I didn't have any, so the fact that I got 3 out of a class of 31, we're getting somewhere. I have to tell you that all of this energy relationship, there's one thing that will make me take your test on this chapter and just write a big red F across the top of it and not even consider grading the rest of it. Have you ever seen me write in red pen? I will have to go buy a red pen just so I can put a big red F across the top of it. By buy a red pen, I mean I'll just go to the art department and borrow a marker. But whatever. We tend to not be very considered in the things that we say, right? Like we just talk. and it causes us to misuse some words. But please don't commit this fatal sin of thermodynamics. Energy is not created by autotrophs. Autotrophs do not, let me repeat that in case you didn't hear the not. Autotrophs do not create energy. Did you hear it? I tried to say it louder than I said everything else in the sentence. Little inflection. So they do not create energy. Why don't they create energy, my friends who know the first law of thermodynamics? Energy is neither created nor destroyed. It is simply transformed, right? So there, our friends, the autotrophs, take energy from the sun. That energy is light, right? Energy from the sun and convert it into chemical energy that gets used by our friends, the heterotrophs. It is not created. It is not destroyed. It might be wasted. It's true. Heterotrophs, horrendous wasters of energy. Terrible wasters. Are you a terrible energy waster? Yeah? Terrible energy wasters. But they certainly don't create it. So, law of thermodynamics number 1, energy is neither created nor destroyed. Law of thermodynamics number 2. What's the second one? That's conservation of mass. Okay, so let's see. Law of thermodynamics, if energy can neither be created nor destroyed, law number 2. It says something about the efficiency of the system. Entropy is on the rise. Entropy is on the rise. So yesterday, to get your attention, I threw a book. Yeah? Throwing that book took some kind of energy, right? Like it took effort on my part. But the reason that I chose to do what I do, besides the fact you can't really teach kindergartners about entropy because they'll just look at you like, and then pick their nose and eat it. It's pretty much downhill from there. So chose not to work with that particular age bracket. Tell me I'm wrong. I mean, I gave my sophomores Play-Doh earlier, and no one put it in their mouths. That's why I chose this age bracket. Think about it, kindergartners. Where's the first place it goes besides up your nose, in your ear, or up the nose or ear of your classmate? In your mouth. So, God bless those kindergarten teachers. What do you think they feel like by the end of the day? Why? I was not exhausted yesterday after my book throwing incident. Went home and did some kettlebells just so I can throw books harder next time. Energy's not maintained, and to prevent those little kindergartners from going BANNS, what do they have to do?
Expend a lot more energy.
Yeah, they expend an awful lot of energy because kindergartners naturally are kind of chaotic. You would agree? Even when you put them in nice little matching uniforms and you try and wipe the boogers off their face and make them look all nice and neat like, oh, I don't know, human beings and not like knee-biting, salivating, booger-creating things. Don't get me wrong, one at a time they're adorable. 30? Those teachers must be sainted. Like they have to line up on squares to go to the bathroom. Some of them can't even go to the bathroom by themselves yet. This doesn't upset you guys? I find this very confusing. Even when you guys start leaking from the eyeballs, I usually look at you like, what do you do with it? Can you imagine a classroom full of them who start leaking for no reason other than like they decided they missed their dog and then just like, psh. It's very stressful. I can't think. It's taking me energy to think about them. So you understand then that it takes that kindergarten teacher some kind of energy to create, like to control the chaos that is that classroom? It always takes energy to control chaos. And therefore, when there is nothing imposing energy on that system, when it is just a system, energy is always going to lead to chaos. Chaos is always on the rise. Remove that teacher, remove the divine being, the deity from the classroom, right? And those kids are like, ah, and then tell them that Christmas is coming, and then turn the volume up more, and then, God forbid, it start to snow. I always like little kids on like the first day it snows that decide they're gonna like throw a snowball. You ever watch them when they leave school? They're hilarious. Just like picking up snow, chucking it at kids, and you got like the one kid in the corner just to find like a rock. Oh man, oh, I'm so glad I don't teach kindergartners. Chaos is the non-science term for entropy. Entropy is always on the rise. Chaos is on the rise in any system. And what that tells us about this system is that it is horribly inefficient. There is a great deal of energy in this system that gets wasted. And one of my favorite pictures from your book is a picture of, I think it's a gazelle wasting energy. It's a pretty good picture. It's like a gazelle and like an arrow coming off its back. I'm like, I've been to the zoo a few times, but I've never seen arrows coming out of gazelles. Very confusing. This system means that nutrients are going to cycle, but energy will only flow. Entropy's on the rise. Energy's going to flow. It's headed out of the system. It doesn't make a return back to the beginning. Thanks, entropy. Laws of thermodynamics. Entropy is on the rise. Chaos. Entropy is on the rise. This is a multiple choice question on this test. I'm going to write it here on this slide. I'm going to tell you in four words, nutrient cycle and energy flows. And I guarantee at least 5 people will get that question wrong. Just throwing it out there right now. So nutrients cycle and energy flows. It's not that we're not wasteful with nutrients. Sometimes nutrients do get wasted. They are turned back into an inaccessible form of that nutrient. But that's what we've got autotrophs for. They'll just fix it again. Energy, though, we're not going to really have a whole lot that's going to help us out with this whole energy thing. It's just going to flow and it's going to get wasted because that's just kind of the situation of life. Do we think we understand the distinct relationship between autotrophs and heterotrophs? You want to know the best part of the heterotroph part of this? Because, we just thoroughly did autotrophs. This is what we have to say about heterotrophs. Ready? Did I do autotroph as A, or was it a 1? I think it was an A. They're other feeders. They have to eat something else. They can't fix carbon. And it's 95% of the organisms out there. None of you have balked at my 95% of the organisms out there yet. Nobody's been like, there's a lot more green stuff out there than there are like us, right? How is it that you made that up? I beg your pardon.
How is this 95% classified? Is it number of organisms or like the mass of the organisms or?
It would be number of species.
Okay.
You mean that matters? Number of species versus like biomass?
Yeah, because the larger the biomass, the more energy it will use or produce if it's an autotroph.
So you're saying that it should look something like a pyramid, like there should be like a lot more in terms of mass, there should be more mass of autotrophs than there is mass of heterotrophs?
Yes.
Or the system's unsustainable?
Yes.
He likes the mathematics portion of all of this. Oh, we get to talk about Thomas Malthus. It's going to be so depressing. I can't wait. You are absolutely correct. It is number of species. And the reason I point this out is because of those 95%, you must also consider that you, my friends, like you walk in here and you're like, oh, I am me. I am one organism. No, you're like a little bacteria farm. Look at you. Look at all of you. You're covered in bacteria all over your hands, in your stomach. You're like a walking bacteria ranch. Some dust mites, you could probably throw those in there somewhere on your clothes. How many of you started to fidget? You're like, I feel filthy now. Go shower, it's still not going to help. You're still covered in bacteria. And that's okay. But that tells you how many species are just in this classroom. And when we started counting species in this classroom, if we did, we were like, okay, turtle, 1, human, 2, newt, 3. Two. And well, now we have to, increase it. Oh, how many of you have some kind of infection? You're suffering from some sort of respiratory ailment at the moment. There's no one in this room who's sick. Yeah, if you are currently sick, you're introducing a whole other set of species to the room. So there's tons of those heterotrophs. All the stuff that's on you, by the way, it's all heterotrophic. It's eating your dead skin. The stuff in your stomach is eating the stuff you ate. So it's eternally grateful that you ate lunch today.
So like 95% of all all species are heterotrophs.
Done with heterotrophs. None, you guys didn't get sufficiently squirmy when I said you were covered in other stuff. Kind of ruined it for me right there. Well, I could make it more gross.
Yes.
Any athlete's foot? There's more fungus. There's a whole other species. Yeah? Parasites? No tapeworm, no pinworm? Halitosis? Halitosis? You want to know how you figure it out? Lick the back of your hand, let it dry, and smell it. Do it. I'm a terrible influence on you guys. Oh my God, this is great. If you do that and you discover bad breath, don't worry, that's not your fault. It's the bacteria that resides in your tonsils and on your tongue. Any cavities? Any cavities? There's a whole other species of bacteria that's mowing down on all of the stuff in your mouth. Hey, you guys are really hard to gross out. I have to work harder. So those are your 95%. That's heterotrophs. I'm done with those. What happens when we've been individuals? One individual is part of a population. Population is super easy. You can define it for me. A group of individuals. This is me deciding that all of the other letters in things that make sentences, totally unnecessary. Group of individuals that can interbreed. Hey, if you interbreed, what are you? Organisms that can breed are considered one species. He did talk. Can I bother you for un momento, por favor?
Can I put this away first?
Yes. They are a group of individuals who interbreed, who are part of the same species, who live in the same geographic location. That's important. So, breed, location. Group of individuals who can interbreed, live in the same geographic location. They are affected by here's where we get all mathematics on it. Populations are affected by birth rate. Anytime we say the word rate, by the way, you should think calculus. Birth rate, death rate, seems like something that might affect population. If a population's death rate is higher than its birth rate, what's going to happen to the population? Extinction! That's another thing that affects populations. I know you're shocked. If a species goes extinct, there is no longer a population of it. See those 4 other cans? 8 other cans. I math well.
You English well too.
But isn't it the British version? They maths well. By the way, what's with that Doctor Who? Have you seen the moon one?
I saw, I've caught up.
You're caught up? The one where the moon is actually an egg?
Yeah, that's fun. That was fun.
Peculiar one. I like the fact that it laid another egg, though. That made me happy. Oh, I should have asked all of them. I should have spoiler alerted. If I just spoiler alerted for one of you. Sorry. Spoiler. This, all of a sudden we're gonna hear like clunk, clunk. So, it's affected by birth rate, death rate, extinction, immigration and emigration rates. Animals, other organisms immigrate and emigrate. You can make some of those organisms on your hand emigrate quite quickly. Katie is going to take her hand and just... Why isn't she? How did you know what was going to happen?
Because
Well, she was about to give you all of the bacteria on her hand. Newt saw it coming. But we caused, remember I was waiting and I waited for a really long time. Thanks for leaving me hanging. Thank you.
morning.
Well, you left me hanging for a while, but we had some emigration there. Right? Species, they emigrate. There's one population is here now and one population's on his hand. I know, you're all like, ew, it's really okay. It's just like Staph aureus. We'll be fine. What happens if I go and use some antibacterial hand sanitizer? What happens to the population that was on my hand?
Dies.
Mass extinction!
No, there's still that 0.01 left.
There's still that 0.01 left, and gosh, I hope they're the kind that don't make me sick, because I just killed off everyone else living on my hand so it can be recolonized by the ones that didn't die. There's what they use mostly is rubbing alcohol, which is in a lot of those, but other ones that you should not purchase, children, do not, are the ones that say they contain triclosan. You don't want the ones that contain antibiotics. That's really not good.
Why?
Because it kills off all the ones that are susceptible to that antibiotic and leaves only the ones that don't get killed by it. So then the next time you use it, it's all the ones that won't get killed by it anyway. So, you know, you're forcing the hand of evolution a little faster than it ought to be. Bad news bears, children.
Doesn't it feel like all of them, but they don't want to get sued for saying it was 100%?
Oh, there's always that person who doesn't follow directions. And truth be told, it doesn't cover viruses. That really bothers me because it always says kills the cold and flu virus. You can't kill something that is not alive. Just so you know. See? See? Now you're irritated too. Good. You should be.
So does bleach do the same thing where it kills like 99.1% bacteria?
Bleach will do the same thing where they will tell you that it will kill most of them. Do not dip your hands in bleach.
Why? What would happen?
Because it burns. You know, pure bleach is pretty strong stuff. Uh-oh. It says triclosan, doesn't it?
No, I'm just reading the directions. Or it's not the directions, but the ingredients. I don't think there is. No. Wait, is that fancy? Yeah.
Is it the foamy kind? Oh, is it candy apple?
Yeah.
Winter candy apple gets me every time. Yeah, no, it's just alcohol. You're fine with this. It's the active ingredient is 62% alcohol is what you're worried about. So what I've drawn for you is the mathematics portion of winter candy apple is like the best of all of the winter smells. What I've drawn for you is what one of the mathematicians, actually who's an economist, who talked about this population thing said, and I have terrible news for you because he was right. He studied population and rates and calculus. Remember I said when you hear the word rate, you should think calculus? He studied those things as part of this, but not about animals. He studied it about humans specifically. And a couple hundred years ago, he came out and said, you know, I've got really bad news for you guys. If the population continues growing at the rate at which it is growing, that would be the exponential line here, the one that goes whoosh, and then straight up. There is going to come a critical point, that's where our two lines cross, a critical point where the number of heterotrophs, read humans, outstrips the number of, or the amount of the food. The straight line, the arithmetic growth, that's the food supply. And somebody earlier was like, what happens at the critical point? And then somebody else goes, Hunger Games. Actually, yes. That's what happens at the critical point. Famine. Thomas Malthus took it a step further. He's like, oh, it's not just famine. Oh, no. Humans, here's how we're going to solve this. War. Famine, war, and poverty. If you don't believe Thomas Malthus, go ahead and take a look at some of the countries that we know are currently struggling with overpopulation. Okay, what do they do in China? They're now relying on controlling the number of people who are born, right? Saying you can only have so many kids and it better be a boy?
Yeah.
How about India?
Extreme poverty.
Extreme poverty, and they're now just offering sterilization to women there by saying we will give you X amount of money to be voluntarily sterilized. Mind you, it's not super voluntary because if you are dirt poor, are you going to be sterilized for money?
Yeah.
Yeah, right? Now, somebody earlier is like, well, how much money? And I was like, seriously? Seriously, the U.S. Council of Catholic Bishops is not happy with that response because we, according to the USCCB, say that's very bad. Very, very bad. Even more so, somebody's like, I'd do it for $1 million. $500,000. Yeah, sure. 23 U.S. dollars. That's how many rupees they get. 23 U.S. dollars worth for their sterilization. Once. Not to mention that currently this hit the news because last week, no, it was 2 weeks ago, about 15 of the women who went in for this voluntary sterilization didn't come out. They died because it wasn't a clean and sterile procedure and the people weren't trained properly to perform the sterilization procedure. Thomas Malthus would have said, I told you so. You run out of food. This is what you do. So that's part of the population study. Now you're all like, what are we doing here? U.S., how close are we to the critical point? You know, we just keep monkeying with things and making like better and better and better ways to, well, better, more technologically advanced ways to get food. So we're doing okay for the moment. You have some choices. Fatten up, kids. Stock up and become a prepper. Or a hoarder. Or, you know, learn some pretty good self-defense, because you never know. Sure. The one that goes up, the exponential growth, that's the human population. And the arithmetic growth is the food. And, you know, when we study populations, that is what we are talking about. Yep.
Wouldn't the famine, kind
Then cause the population to dip.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
would it kind of just keep going up and down?
Mm-hmm. That's what he extrapolated it to.
Isn't that why lungs need like Great Depressions and stuff like that because it kills off some of the population?
It is a completely normal way to control the population, yes.
Isn't it just like how volcanoes like
Um,
don't kill us?
From the scientific perspective, notice I'm not saying this from like the human rights or human interest perspective. You're all gonna be like, she's a dreadful human being. From the been right. You okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got the other 4 okay without dropping it.
Okay. I just don't want you to get crushed by cans in the hallway. That'd be really hard to explain to your parents.
Here we go. Bye.
Bye, thank you. Those are really irritating me, so that's just fabulous.
3 of those cans in one arm, his arm's gonna be so tired.
It probably will. I lost my thought because I got distracted by Nick. Human population, population control. It is completely normal. Disease will take out part of a population. Depressions will take out part of a population. Unfortunately, humans were kind of awful, and war will take out parts of populations as well. And then you have like even more dreadful humans who decide to take out parts of population with genocide. Those people are like the worst of the worst. So, yes, it is entirely true that we also do that to ourselves.
Is this kind of like the whole volcanoes are actually pretty good for things aspect, like how it like kills off other stuff and makes stuff regrow, sort of?
In an ecological perspective, yes. Again, the human interest perspective, we usually are like, death equals bad.
Are there like other charts like that for like different species
Mhm.
that have gone like up and down?
Yep. That's the cool thing is we then took Thomas Malthus's predictive models, and there are people now, population ecologists, who do nothing but this modeling for each and every species. There are some people, like one of my professors in college was all about the barnacle, and that's what they did. I know, right? Theirs was on the barnacle. I can think of nothing more exciting.
So it's like, is the point of extinction when it hits that line and it will just like if something was to go extinct from that?
Extinction is unlikely from running out of food for the simple fact that once you have a dip in the population, there will be enough food again. Unless there's also a famine at the same time.
Yeah, so like if there was an extinction, would it just be like going up and up and then down?
Then straight down. Yep, it's like the virus, the potential virus / meteor / whatever it is that wiped out the dinosaurs.
He does that, like he had the airport with like there were too many animals and they would like go on the runway and stuff, so he had to like
Population control. Absolutely. Michigan State actually is infamous for its population control and helping the DNR with establishing what is a relevant number of species for population. We can talk about that when we talk about the social implications of overpopulation.